Hey everybody, Rob from Karma Comic Chameleon. Today we're looking at a couple of ProRevenge stories. First one, you messed with my time off for the last time. Let's jump right in. Hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. I used to work at the post office as an RCA, which is a Rural Carrier Associate. It was a part-time driver job, it paid well, and I wanted to get the full-time job with benefits, so you have to start somewhere. The full-time driver on my route was Bill. Bill was his own man. He did what he wanted, and the postmaster allowed it. When I was trained, I rode one day with Bill. The next day, Bill called out. I then had to sort the mail and drive the route all alone. It was horrible. The PM should have told him to come in, but he was a spineless man. I didn't finish until around 8 p.m. It should have been around 3 p.m. given the time of year and how long it would eventually take me. My schedule was every Saturday and any vacation days Bill would take. I also covered every time he called out. Now, as this was supposed to be a one-day-a-week job, I had a full-time job as well at my local hospital. My post office job was in the next county over, about 45 minutes away each way. I would get calls at 6 a.m. from Bill with some BS excuse for him not wanting to come to work. He would say he had to see an orthodontist today. I worked with these doctors, and I know that there was no way he would be able to get an appointment that early. If he needed an appointment, he should have called me the day before so I could get my second shift job covered. Again, spineless PM would allow it to happen without any recourse. On my anniversary, I had told him I was going to take my wife out to a nice lunch before we both went to our job at the hospital. At 6 a.m. the phone rang, and it was the same lie as always, and I had to go in. I reminded him it was my anniversary, and he said, "Too bad." I went in, totally pissed off. The same thing on my birthday, and then on my wife's birthday. He called out, and I had to work both jobs. A few months later, and nothing had changed. I applied to nursing school and was accepted for the fall program. I had several months, so I kept to myself. My plan was to work the same way I had, and if I was offered a full-time post office job, I'd take it. If not, I'd go to nursing school. Both were great careers. Bill called out whenever the workload was heavy, like with Sears catalogs. They were the worst. The postmaster would do things like remove all the toilet paper from the bathrooms, thinking we were wasting time pooping, I guess. He'd also turn up the heat in the summer so we'd be miserable and leave on our route faster, which was physically impossible because no matter how hot you got, you had to sort everything before leaving on your route. Sorting was by hand, and I was trying to be very accurate. Now, Bill had gotten remarried shortly before I started with the post office. They never had a chance for a honeymoon, so they put it off. They scheduled a 2-week trip to the Caribbean. When he told me there was a month to go before they left, which was plenty of notice, he told me the tickets were non-refundable, so don't screw me over. I had had enough of Bill and the PM screwing me over all the time, so 10 days before he left, I put in my 2-week notice. The PM assumed I'd worked through Bill's vacation. Nope, just the first 4 days. Bill called me at home. "Man, I've been good to you. You've got to cover my time off. The vacation is non-refundable." I remind him of all the times he's lied to force me to cover, and the days I had to work for him, like my anniversary, my birthday, my wife's birthday, etc. Also, how he screwed me over in orientation, making my first several weeks miserable. I left the day I said I would. The PM refused to cover, and Bill had to cancel the trip and come in and work. I loved nursing, so I made the best choice. So in the end, Bill got his just desserts. I do feel like there's a little bit of something missing here because they probably could have brought in another mail carrier from a neighboring town or something to cover those shifts, especially when they knew a few days in advance that there was going to be a hole that needed to be covered. On to our second story. Oh, you robbed me? Let's be friends. Let's jump right in. When I was at college, I had my wallet stolen. This is where my 6-month revenge story begins. At the beginning of the fall semester, I was working out in the college gym one morning and realized when I returned that my wallet was not in my pants that I had left in my locker. Assuming that I just left it in my dorm, I didn't think too much about it and went to lunch. When I got to the dining hall for lunch and sat down with some friends, I heard that some other people who had been to the gym recently were missing things: watches, cell phones, wallets, etc. One of my best friends was missing his phone, and we realized we had been robbed and spent the rest of the meal bitching about gym security and just accepting our fate. I later learned this sort of theft from the gym locker rooms had been going on for months. This is important later. Later in the evening, we were sitting around playing FIFA and tried calling my buddy's phone just to see what would happen. It rang. The idiot thief didn't turn off the phone, and we basically called him 100 times because we knew there was a limited amount of time to get in touch before the phone died. This was before Find My Phone was as widespread as it is today, so we were bummed when the thief never answered the phone. About to give up, I received a text on my phone reading, "What the f***, stop calling me." Perfect. I text back saying that I was trying to reach my buddy who had had his phone stolen and that I had recently lost my wallet as well. No response. I text again saying I don't really care about the cash or the wallet, but my ID was going to be a pain to replace because I am from a state halfway across the country. The thief starts texting back, and to be honest, I was surprised by how empathetic he was being with me about getting robbed. I started sending friendlier and friendlier texts, saying things like, "You're actually a pretty cool guy, and I get why you would steal these things just laying around." When he apologized directly, I was like, "Forgive and forget, man, don't worry about it." At this point, my only goal was to get my ID back. After texting for a while, I realized that the only way this guy would meet up is if he had something to gain, so I started asking over text if I could pay him for the stolen stuff. He wasn't very interested in that, probably because we didn't offer enough money, but eventually the conversation led to drugs. Now, this was after like 10 days of texting back and forth, so it wasn't super abrupt because we had talked about parties, drinking, and smoking pot. We were essentially catfishing this guy to believe we were friends, so there is a lot of filler conversation I am leaving out. The surprising part about his drug offer though was that he wanted to sell me acid, which was pretty hardcore based on the conversation so far. I'm not a narc, but that acid dealer and grand larceny combo made me realize this guy is making 100% of his income off of criminal activities. At this point, I thought I might be in over my head, so I went to the campus public safety to see if they could help. Here was my pitch. I'm in contact with the guy who has been stealing from students at the gym, and I'm setting up a drug sting. I want your help. Their response was, "What the f***? You cannot do this." Fine, looks like we have to go rogue. I leave campus security and proceed setting up a drug deal with the idea that we will pay him cash for the return of stolen goods and some drugs. He has a pretty specific instructions because I think he realized he might stand to get his beat by showing up to a place full of people he had robbed. His instructions were for us to leave cash under a trash can in the middle of campus, and he would then throw away our stuff in the trash in a recognizable yellow bag. We were never supposed to see his face. I say that plan sounds great, let's do it tomorrow. The next day comes and I skip all my classes. I called a friend who had grown up in the area and gone to the public high school near my college, and then called another friend with a dorm room overlooking the trash can where the deal was to go down. Then the stakeout began. We watched for like 3 hours while listening to stand-up comedy in the dorm room and f***ing around. It was a fun reason to skip class. Finally, I get a text from the guy that warns me to not try anything funny because he was with a friend with a knife. Sure enough, we see a skinny white kid carrying a yellow bag approaching the trash can along with a short, squat guy in a big hoodie. I call the stolen cell phone and can see the guy pick up. The next words I said were a total lie and probably risky to our overall plan, but ended up working out. "Hey man, I called the cops and they are on campus looking for a guy with a yellow bag. There's no cash under the trash can, but if I were you, I would ditch the bag and get out of here." He cussed me out, dropped the bag where he stood, and started running into the woods. What he didn't realize is that we were only like 30 feet away in a second-story dorm room, and my friend from the area recognized him from the relatively small high school they both attended. She was like, "Holy shit, it's Cletus!" Obviously, I'm using a fake name here, but honestly, Cletus is not that far off from the hillbilly name this dude actually had. We go down to collect the yellow bag and find my ID, credit cards, my friend's ID, and no drugs. The lack of drugs was kind of a relief when the next part of this story started going down. It is also important to note that my friend's cell phone was not returned in the yellow bag, even though that was the original deal. So now I have what I need for real revenge. I skip campus safety this time and go straight to the actual police and tell them the whole story, minus the drugs part. I give them the returned stolen goods, the phone number, and some account information for the stolen phone, and the name of the thief. The stolen goods and the name were the only things they really needed to go find this guy, but the phone really sealed the deal for poor Cletus because they ended up finding it on him. I gave my statement to the police, get my ID, and my friend gets his phone. All of this happened over a few weeks, we celebrate our victory, and life goes on. 6 months later, I get a letter in the mail. It turned out that Cletus's home had a ton of drugs in it, and a ton more of items reported stolen by students. A lot of the stuff stolen from my classmates was returned, and I was given notice that a restraining order had been filed on my behalf that was to keep Cletus 500 yards away from me. I wasn't too worried about keeping my distance though, because the letter also informed me that Cletus would be spending the next 36 months in prison for the they found in his home. I would be long graduated and out of Dodge by the time he was released. The final kicker was that I also received a check for just around $180 for the wallet and cash stolen from me that were never recovered, paid for by hours of labor from sweet, sweet Cletus. So, guy steals from college students. College students figure out who he is, college students call the cops, and the cops arrest him, and he goes to jail for doing his crimes. It sounds more like a justice story to me, and not really a pro-revenge. What do you guys think? Let's see your comments down below on whether you think this one really fits into the pro-revenge category. I want to thank both of the OPs for posting their stories to the Pro-Revenge subreddit. You can visit them both at the links in the description below. Please do that and give them an upvote. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Comic Chameleon saying thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one.